I think what I tended to do was, whenever I've had a manager, especially as I got older and matured, was to get a notepad and sort of just soak them up like a sponge. And mindset's everything, because if you don't believe in yourself, or you don't know how to use your personality to get the best out of you, then you can just fall by the wayside, and you see so many players do that. Nice it a little bit, fantastic.
Absolutely. Have you ever encountered like any fans obviously like giving you abuse? I've been in like group chats with certain people, and even if they haven't experienced it, they'll go, "Oh, that I don't know, that player's rubbish" or whatever, and you're like, you've never seen this guy play. And although it's a little comment and you've seen it and you chuck it on Twitter, this guy could see it, and although he's a player and he's on X amount, that could be the difference between with Kieran Dyer once. I think it was towards the end of his career, he come out of the stadium and a guy shouted something at him and he was like, "Yeah, I've had enough. I want to leave Newcastle." It wasn't, obviously, that was a combination of things, but just that was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah, words are very powerful, and have I ever had abuse? Yeah, I have. I've had to endure a few things early on in my career. Went to court. A manager got suspended. What got deemed to be bullying, and I was the player involved when I was in the youth team. And it went to court, and then the backlash that came from that, because the manager was well liked by the fans.
Yeah.
Soon as it came out that I was the person involved, even though I did nothing wrong, sort of had that backlash, for a few years, and then I've had things on fans forums and stuff like that, and again, manager will say, "Don't look on there, just be thick-skinned, just ignore them," but it's human nature. And, it is part of the job. It comes with it, of course. And you do learn you get immune to it, but it doesn't make it okay in the long run. It does land, trust me. And I don't care if players say it doesn't, and they lie, and they make out that it doesn't, know how much money they're earning or how successful they are. Nobody wants to hear any negativity towards them, and that's just part and parcel, unfortunately.
I know this is just like, people should instantly know this anyway, but thinking before you speak is just like a massive thing that needs to happen in football, because I think when I look at like certain things with like say with the manager you had, I think it was Peter Beardsley. He went through all that sort of stuff. I won't say too much, but he was obviously well loved at Newcastle, and people are so easily probably going to go like jump on this player because he was because of the reputation this guy has. People instantly hold people in high esteem, and they just jump on things too quick before actually getting the information.
Yeah, I think what I'd love to see, it would never happen, but just a fan or a few fans each game just go and stand in the technical area where the subs are, just experience a game of football from eye level.
Yeah.
Okay, because when you're sat in the stands, it's a completely different view to when you are. I don't know if you've ever been ball boy at a game, but I can remember being ball boy when I was a kid and thinking, this match is so fast. It's completely different. You see it on TV, and the tempo not necessarily look quick. When you get up close and personal and get on eye level, they could see the game from a different picture, from a different perspective. And I think that will give them an overall understanding of how difficult actually the game is. When you sat in the stands and you have a different view, it's so easy to say, make out like the game's easy and everyone's a really good player from the stands. But actually getting down onto eye level, I think that'd be interesting if you could ever get some support. I don't know how it'd work, but just get some supporters, down there every other game or whatever, and just have a different match day experience. Absolutely. I think they would be the ones that will probably, bite their lip in future.
Yeah. It's just like with Harry Redknapp. Obviously, you can't do it now, but a guy's given this stick to this player. I can't remember his name, but Harry Redknapp's gone. Go on then, get on the pitch. I'll take him off, and you go on. Apparently, he was amazing that day, and he scored. But for any other fan, if you go, well, go on then, get on the pitch and do what they do every week and take the abuse, they'd go, oh, like sorry, I can't do it. If you actually called somebody out, they would have a totally different outlook on it.
Yeah. No, it is a blessing and a curse because, like I say, it's not the players' fault that they get paid a stupendous amount, but at the same time, it comes with the huge responsibility. You know, there's very little margin for error in your performances, and unfortunately, that's the way the game's gone. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll touch upon. Obviously, we're talking about Arsenal. What was it like playing 90 minutes at the Emirates? Like
amazing, as you can imagine. You know, again, probably lower league players think, gosh, you know, if I just had one opportunity to play for someone like Arsenal, you know, on that stage in front of 60,000, I wonder how I'd show up and compete. And then obviously you get that. The beautiful thing about the FA Cup is it gives you an opportunity to play at that level. And, you know, we defeated quite a lot of higher opposition teams in the cup, and then we got our dream tie with Arsenal. And leading up to that game, I can remember we had BMW, Audi, Mercedes all ringing me up, you know, do you want to take a car down to the Emirates?
Wow.
Obviously, it's good promoting for them. So then the Red Arrows up in Lincolnshire, where I'm from, you know, the Red Arrows are based there. And they was like, do you want to come in? We'll do a display. We'll come down. You come into the debriefing and see how we work and operate as a team. So I had an insight there. Then I was on my sofa in Lincoln the week leading up to it, and I had a phone call from the United States of America. Nearly didn't answer it because I thought it was one of those PPI scams or whatever, or something going on. Yeah. And I answered it, and I was live on air in New York on a radio show to talk about this FA Cup run. And then on the Thursday, met Thierry Henry. So it was a little bit surreal, a little bit of a taster of what it's like actually playing at the top. And I embraced it because I knew it was only going to last a week or so. But then we got to the game, and then I can remember Dan Cowley came in and said, do you want the good news or the bad news? And obviously the lads was like, oh, what we got in store here? And so I went and read the team out, and we said, oh, we'll have the bad news first. And he was like, Alexis Sanchez, Aaron Ramsey, Özil, Walcott, you know, they're playing the big guns. And it was like, we looked around at each other and thought, we're here now, you know, let's just enjoy it. And you know, that was it. And I think when he read the team out, I think my hamstring cramped up a little bit more, you know. But no, it was amazing. And then when you walk out onto the pitch, you just want time to slow down. You want to be able to soak every single second up, and that's what it was. It was just trying to see it as a day out more than anything. Of course, there's that competitiveness, and there was a slight belief because we had a winning mentality that year. I think we must have that season. We must have been averaging above 60% win ratio. So obviously there was a winning mentality, a winning culture. So there was a little part of us that actually thought we could. Yeah. You know, compete with them.
That's the FA Cup,
and of course, we did for 43 minutes. But once the first goal went in, got in at half time, the second half, they just turned it up a gear. And as a player, I've always thought, what's the difference between me and Alexis Sanchez? You know, we're the same height, same build, and it's not until you're actually on the pitch with them to realise that they've just got this extra gear, you know, sharpness, this edge. About them, and you know, I've always prided myself on my pace, and you know, that's my strength, and it served me well throughout my career in non-league. But then looking at the Walcotts and the Sanchez and players playing in my position, that's why they're playing at that level. Is because they've just got an extra gear, you know, and obviously technically they're world class as well. So, but yeah, there was a funny story. So. They played Petr Cech that day, and I normally play cat and mouse. I'm really intelligent with my pressing from the front, So normally I play cat and mouse and pretend I'm not looking, and then I'll dart at the defender and try and nick the ball.
Nice.
And it works at the conference level. And I started playing cat and mouse, and that was one of the tactics anyway. And Petr Cech just pinged the ball over my head, and it just skinned my afro. And it'd be just enough accuracy on it that I couldn't get it. And it would just get to the fullback, and he did this every time. And after the game, Arsene Wenger was saying that they normally play Ospina in the Champions League because Petr Cech's distribution isn't good enough. Wow. And so I was thinking, gosh, if Ospina's better than him at distributing, then God help how good he is. Because Petr Cech isn't known for his distribution, but believe you me, the boy can, kick a ball. So it's frightening, really, to the levels that they get to. And going off that, Bayern Munich beat Arsenal 5 days before we got there, or 3 days before we got there in midweek in the Champions League. And then we get beat 5-0. So how good at Bayern? So it was a massive realisation for us players that, you have to respect those at the top because they're just different class,
Another thing, just like going off Petr Cech, the respect that some legends don't get. Like Petr Cech is one of the best goalkeepers we've ever had in the Premier League, and more recently, maybe more so I've seen with Arsenal fans, but they're like, oh yeah, he's rubbish. He hasn't saved a penalty for us all season, and you're like, can't you appreciate what this guy has done in the game as much as he hasn't.
Short-term memory, isn't it?
Yeah.
Short-term memory, and and you're right. And when you look at Petr Cech and all that he's achieved, I always say, if you can get to a place in your career, and it's not easy and it's not for everyone, but if you can get a place in your career where you've kind of you know when the right time is to get out, that's the best thing to do, because you can almost not ruin your reputation, but you can almost you can stay in the game too long, and then when your legs start to go and you can't kind of kick it into gear again, that's what you'll be remembered for in the future, not the good stuff that you did previously. And unfortunately, that's what it's like. And going back to when I was at Lincoln, I had the peak of my experiences. I played against Arsenal, and it was actually that weekend playing Arsenal that has actually moved me into this direction of line of work that I'm doing now, because I had a massive realisation after that game that, went to this hotel, checked in down London at the Landmark Hotel, where you could literally eat off the floor. It was immaculate. Bayern Munich stayed there. And I woke up come after the game, went back to my room, watched Match of the Day, watched the highlights and everything like that on Cloud 9. I had notifications. I thought, I'm not even going to look at my phone until tomorrow. And woke up on the Sunday morning, and I was starfishing in this king-size bed looking at the ceiling, just trying to process what I've just achieved and what's happened. The night before, the adrenaline's still going. And I had this voice, as we all have these voices, and it was like, now what? The message that I was getting was, now what? And I was thinking, I didn't really know what it meant until about a year later, when I understood that it was my ego basically saying, now what? Well, you've achieved that, Nath, but now what? Chase the next thing. And then I realised that, I always thought happiness and sustainable happiness was at the end of something like that, achievement or success. The realisation that I had was that I'm always going to be chasing something outside of myself. So if the ego is always going to be saying, one day, someday in the future, when I get the car, when I get the house, when I get the girl, whatever it is, then my life will be great. I realise that it's attached to certain things. And I know that happiness is self-generated, and happiness can't be earned, worn, or consumed. It's an happiness that we tap in. It's an experience that we tap into. So, example of this: been to Nepal, they've got nothing. There's rubble and glass all over the floor. The kids in the Shantinagar village got no shoes, but they're the happiest kids I've ever seen. You come back to England, you see the kids, they're spoiled, they're not happy, they've got everything, they've got too many options.
They've got a roof over their head and they're not happy. Yeah, it's crazy.
So I'm thinking, what is inside of these kids in Nepal? So I started to work on myself, and I realised that happiness is inside, and that it's not attached to the
it's not
new
materialistic.
car Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because the novelty wears off and you'll want something else. Do you understand? So I had this realisation against Arsenal that I didn't even have time to pat myself on the back, to answer my nan's text and say, Nan, did you see me on telly? To then my ego was like, Nath, forget that. Yeah. Next thing. And I was thinking, realistically, I'm 30 now. My career isn't going to get any better than this. Yeah, I've reached the peak of my experiences. I don't want to be one of my mates that I see who's playing at 37, 38, who's then going down to no disrespect, but a lower league team, grassroots, and just playing for the sake of it. I'll only play if I can offer something and be effective. And football has given me so much, I didn't want to take any more from it. And also off the back of that, Grimsby, Cambridge did the double. Grimsby won at Wembley, got promoted, and then so I had 3 back-to-back promotions, and then played at Arsenal as well. And I thought, wow, if I get out now, football's placed me in such a privileged position in order to have a voice, to go into assemblies, to go into schools, colleges, universities, businesses, talking about mental health, and give me a really good platform in order to get people's attention and send positive messages out into the world. Because if I lose that momentum, in a year's time, I'll be forgotten about. And then it'd be so hard for me to get a gig there. Yeah. So I've seen it as the perfect timing to make that transition from football into the line of work that I do now. And that's just off the back of my own personal experiences that I was struggling with during that time as well off the pitch. So I had a massive realisation. So as much as it was great on the pitch, it did so much for me off it as well because of that realisation. It's actually catapulted me into a different direction that if you said this 3 years ago, I thought I'd be that dude playing till I was 36. Yeah. But there's just some things that happen at certain stages of your life that bring about this awareness and realisation. And I certainly had that. And, I don't have any regrets from it. And I'm really happy with how in tuned I was to listen to that calling at that time, rather than just floating without purpose, drifting by, and then being one of these guys what's like, right, played football for 15 years, had a really decent career, but then now what? What do I do? Yeah. And I was fortunate enough to know exactly what I'm leading into from football, which I always give that advice to footballers now. Know what you want to do afterwards, and always listen to your intuition, because sometimes we do what we think other people want us to do. And it is pride and it is ego as well. You're a footballer and you want to cling on to your career as much as possible. And look at Edgar Davids. Edgar Davids
Barnett as well.
Exactly. and fair play. He wanted. It was like the real life football manager. He wanted to have a crack. But when I played in a game against Edgar Davids, right, for Cambridge against Barnet, Luke Berry, our centre midfielder, scraggy looking, looks like him off Scooby-Doo, with the messy hair. Don't look like a footballer. Yeah. Unbelievable talent for that level. I think he's at Luton now, Bez. But he played against Edgar Davids and he had a battle with him in the middle of the park. And he smashed Edgar Davids and come out with the ball and then thread it through to Kwesi Appiah and he scored. And this was live on BT Sport. And the ground just wanted to open up and swallow Edgar Davids. And I just felt like it was one of those moments where you're like, you probably could have got a coaching role at Juventus, or do you really need to be shoulder barged by a non-league player? No disrespect, but do you really need to put yourself in that position where you're putting your reputation on the line? Do you really need this? And of course, he probably looked at it after a season and thought, this is
not for me.
But, but these things can happen, so it's funny.
I was watching something on Gary Neville, and he's probably the perfect example of, I think it was West Brom away, just like before Alex Ferguson retired. He said, with all due respect to the players I was playing against, as soon as he's taken it past me, I know I'm done playing football.
Yeah. I heard that.
What's the point of, like you say, the earth wanted to swallow Edgar Davids up, and what a player he was, and for other people to see that, especially
Yeah.
for a player that was so good, is quite sad, isn't it?
I know it is, and you know what, but that's football. People love it, and I can understand why people don't want to let it go. You know, I think fortunately for me, my biggest breakdown in 2015, losing my mother to mental health, was actually my biggest breakthrough, because without that experience, I would not be the person I am today, and it wouldn't have molded and shaped me into who I am today to help hundreds and thousands of people. I mean, I've surpassed 30,000 people now of who I've reached, whether it's public speaking or doing my 6-week mentorship program. So this 2-year period away from football, I mean, I wouldn't have even thought of doing that if it wasn't for a life experience that happened, and so therefore it's not easy, of course, when you lose somebody, but it's about changing your mindset and being happy and working on yourself to a point where you no longer play victim and say why me, but say why not me? What can I do to help somebody else in the future with this experience? You know, what's the point of me going through all of that pain and suffering if I'm not going to recycle it into something greater? Because then it's about me, and I'm a selfish individual that's just going to wave the white flag and surrender and say, well, I lost my mother, so I quit. You know, I can't be bothered to get out of bed, I can't bother to do anything, and fall into that pit. So for me, it's about leveraging your adversities and coming out the other side a much better person for it. And going back to our earlier conversation with the quarantine, is I just hope people come out as better people. You know, the planet's reset, the environment's reset. You know, you can see we've got lovely weather in April now, which normally is April showers. There's no chemtrails in the sky. And I just love for people to go and work on themselves in this time, spend time with family, realise that, you know, that is important, and we all come out as better people, because ultimately that is the opportunity that we have.
Absolutely. You say about obviously the isolation as well. We're finding out more as well that the earth is so much better for us being in isolation, with like wildlife coming back to the world as well. Obviously we're going off football track as well, but
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 it's the same. It's the same thing with football. You know, when the season picks up again and we go back into the new season, maybe the manager that was obsessed and didn't spend time with his son and put football before his family, maybe he's had a realization now that he needs to find a healthy balance to his work life, because if he continued with that intensity and that obsession, then maybe, you know, at 55 he could go on and have a heart attack, or do you know what I mean? There's some managers that out there that are literally like, that it's football's their life, and there is more to life to football if you can find a healthy balance. And as much as football is amazing for so many people and so many reasons, it is about finding a healthy balance. And not only the football world, but just the corporate world, whatever job you've got, hopefully people have seen it and think, gosh, there is more to life than that job, you know? Like when I'm through the other side and go back into the real world, I'm going to make sure that I find a healthier balance, and that's what it's about, you know. So yeah, don't just, you know, it ties in with football as well.
Of course. Let's touch upon your line of work now. Obviously, you say you've got Nathan Arnold coaching.
Yeah. So when I first made the transition from football, I've actually just done an audio book alongside with my book as well that I'm writing, and one of the chapters in there is transition. And when I transitioned from football, I underestimated financially and I underestimated mentally how it affected me, because you've got to think, for 13, 14 years, I've been programmed and conditioned and wired a certain way to play football. So for me to then, for the first year, not even go and do a gym workout, you know, for me to take myself off to Nepal and go around the world traveling and do other things, I underestimated how much of a shift I was making in terms of what I'm used to. So I was moving away from my old life, and so from that point, I've gone from 5,000 Instagram followers, 5,000 Facebook followers, all supporting and rooting for Nathan Arnold, the footballer, it was quite controversial. I had a year left of my contract at Lincoln, and I woke up one morning and I said, this is the day that I quit professional football, let it go, and I'll get on with the rest of my life. No one anticipated me doing that, and it was quite controversial. So by doing that and walking away from what I had, a lot of people didn't understand what was happening. So they probably see me post on social media about mental health stuff, and a lot of posts, there was a lot of emotion attached to it. A lot of people probably didn't know what was happening to me. But doing it consistently now for 2 years, people start to understand that, I get his journey. I understand that he's making the transition, to being a life coach or whatever it may be. So what I was trying to say is, from getting those people that was rooting for Nathan Arnold, the footballer, so difficult to get them to fall in love with Nathan Arnold, now the life coach, the person, because as a footballer you get put on a pedestal and you're classed as an hero to some kids who, if you've ever had a promotion at a club, you're a hero to a child. So it's like, can I get them on board with what I'm trying to do? And over time, all my work's been self-generated, where, I've had no funding, I've had no backing, I've had to literally generate all my own work to get to a point now where I've gone into schools, colleges, universities. Like I said, I surpassed the 20,000 mark with public speaking. And then Nathan Arnold coaching, I thought, well, I'm writing all the books. I've got an office full of notes that if I die tomorrow, all my notes are left in that drawer. Yeah. And I think Les Brown says something like, don't get to your deathbed with all your dreams and your ideas still left in you. Who am I if I was to not share my ideas and my notes and everything like that with not only my children, my future grandchildren, but the world? And so I took the courage and I thought, you know what? I'm just going to do the podcast. I'm just going to do the radio interview. I'm going to let people know exactly what I'm doing in private, and I'm going to put it out into the world. And that's what I did. I think as a footballer, you can be a public success but private failure, meaning to the outside world, you can perceive to be this success, but then you go home and you're a failure at home, whether that's being a husband or a father or, and not attending those areas. So I wanted to be a private success and a public success as well. And I thought, well, I'm a private success because I'm doing all this great work, and then put it out there. And then over time, one door opened, word of mouth, Nathan came and spoke at our school, and then it just gathered momentum. And then, I went down to Millfield Boarding School, which stands out for me in Gloucestershire, and I think it's Glastonbury. I think that's where it's at. And I got there on the Monday, and I got there on the Wednesday, and on the Monday, David Beckham had turned up with Romeo. It's a boarding school where Boris Johnson and Chris Martin and Lily Allen and Ian Botham and all these famous people come out of. And so I'm thinking, gosh, I've got a gig at Millfield Boarding School. These kids it's 30 grand a term for these private kids, to get to the school. And, so be given platforms like that, of course, I grow in confidence, and then it gathers momentum, and then it allowed me to build the courage to then go and obviously start my own business out. So the NAC stuff that I do is targeted really. How I can put it to people is, say 75% of life is, wonderful, is amazing, is hilarious, but that 25% is where the challenges, the hardships, the setbacks are. I focus my attention on that 25%. We've got a lot of coaches that focus on, goal settings and being successful. But I focus on, if you can become well equipped and you can gather the tools in your toolbox to be able to build enough resilience to handle life's adversity, because life is unpredictable. There's a saying where Les Brown says, you're either in a problem, just left the problem, or heading towards one. And if you actually look back at your life, you see that is a harsh reality. So why wouldn't you want to prepare for those hard times? It doesn't mean dwell in it. It doesn't mean live there. But it just means pay attention to that and embrace the season that you're in. So now we're in quarantine. A lot of people are struggling with their mental health. So it's about embracing the season that we're in, because it is only a season. So that's my work, is really targeting the 25%, the hardship, the adversity, because if you can do that and handle that, everything else will take care of itself. So yeah, that's ultimately my message really when it comes to like the NAC stuff.
Brilliant. Obviously, with the public speaking, going into schools, colleges, and universities, what are the sort of things that you're trying to put across to these younger generation?
Yeah, so it's just to first and foremost come with compassion, to basically share a message that, you know, just like what happened to me, people invest in me and seen something in me before I've seen it in myself. So I try and generalize the message, but if there's only one person in the audience that resonates, then I've changed one person's life. So even though I've surpassed 20,000, I may have only landed with 1,600. And, you know, that 1,600 have maybe messaged me privately and said, you know, thank you for your talk, and I'm going through suicidal thoughts, or whatever it may be. To be in a position where I can actually affect their lives positively is the ultimate for me. So the message that I would say to any young people when I go into schools, colleges, universities, is to really get to know yourself and fall in love with who you are. It's like, you know, if you say, for instance, in a relationship, you were date other people, but you've never dated yourself. So if you're a guy that goes from one relationship and then as a rebound jumps from one relationship to the next, and it's always her fault, you know.
Yeah, you're in a losing battle there, aren't you?
You've never looked at what you've contributed towards that downfall. So it's about dating yourself, getting to know yourself as an individual. And I use a story. When I was at school, I got placed into special education at 9 years old. So I had all this energy. My father was absent. I didn't meet my father till I was 20. So I had all this anger and frustration. And it used to come out in all different forms at school, where I was hyperactive and I was very sporty, so I hated classroom. So the teacher placed me from my normal class into special education. Now in this classroom there was 5 other mentally ill children. So like any 8-year-old would, 9-year-old would, I started to make stories up about myself, that I was the dumb child, that I was less than everyone else. So then from that I'd go into the playground and I'd start to hang around with anybody that would show me attention. Because as humans, we want to be loved, liked, and approved of. So I wanted approval of others. So I'd try and sag my pants and fit in over there. And then I'd go to the bike shed and hang around with the geeks over there. And then on a Sunday around the dinner table, I'd be a completely different person with manners in front of my family. Yeah. And I spread myself that thin that I didn't know who I was, because I created so many different identities. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what I say to the younger people is, if you follow the trend, you know, and you look up to Kim Kardashian and, you know, all these celebrities, and you try and be like them and try and imitate them, you're going to leave yourself behind, and that's going to catch up with you one day. So why not get to know yourself now and give yourself permission to be your true, authentic self? And you may as well show the world who you truly are, rather than this fake version, you know, this filtered version, because it's going to catch up with you. I don't care who you are. It's going to catch up with you one day. So that message, of course, is quite uncomfortable for the younger generation, because Gen Z are all about text tweeting, twerk world that we live in. That's what I call it. So it's very hard for them to hear me speak about and preach about the old school values. But it's really important, because we are moving away from who we are. Because we're trying to be like someone else, and it has so many effects. And you can see the mental health issues are rising all the time. The stats, the figures are rising, and you know, with social media, you've got to counteract and dilute that with doing more work on yourself as well, so you can piece it together, rather than letting social media wash you up in this, you know, this world of society that we live in, which is so fast paced. So it's quite a different message to other life coaches and motivational speakers and stuff like that, but it's something that comes through me, speaks through me, and I feel like it's a really important message for the younger generation.
Absolutely. I work in a school with behaviour, and if I could get your message across to at least one of the children, it would honestly, it'd make my day knowing that I've helped that child, because I think some children.
Well,
so yeah, carry on. Sorry.
No, sorry, no. Go on, finish what you were saying.
Yeah, it was just the case of children all over this country are probably exactly the same as you, trying to find their place in society, or in their little groups. And some children, it's like having a money box, and every child is like full of like the money, and some that I work with are in the minuses, and they need someone to put those coins into that box for them. And I think
absolutely.
With your messages,
absolutely. I mean, there's some fantastic work out there. There's a lot of people going down that route. I'd like to think it was all authentic and genuine. I had someone reach out to me once and say, Nath, why don't people do what you do but not charge any money? And I've done a lot of charitable stuff for free, and I continue to do that. It's really important. But at the same time, I have dedicated, sacrificed, and committed my life to this work. And I've spent hours upon hours of reading books. I've spent hours and hours going to that workshop, that seminar, taking that course that's cost me £2,000-3,000. So my content in my program now comes with great value. So if I give that away for free, I don't value myself. And this was an issue for me because I come up from lack and limitation mindset. Like, the electricity used to cut off and the candles came on. Like, we used to go to the neighbours to borrow some milk. Like, we had no money growing up. So for me to charge somebody and value myself, I'm like, at first when I did this, I was like, I can't charge anyone for it. I don't value myself. As I start to grow in confidence and realise that actually I've been so effective and helped people get results, then I'm doing myself a disservice if I wasn't to value my own work. So, but on the same note, there is certain people out there that are taking advantage of people's mental health as well and seeing it as a business. And I don't see it as a business. This is, Jay Shetty says, your passion is for you, your purpose is for others. So my passion is, this is what I love to do, but my purpose is bigger than me. I want to leave a legacy where if I go into, cover so many schools in the UK and reach so many people, I want people to remember me rather than remember the feeling that I left them with, rather than remember something that necessarily I said. It's the feeling that is going to ultimately change them. So, yeah, it's a difficult one because I wouldn't say I ever see myself as competing in this market of with other people doing this line of work. But there is certain people out there that have maybe jumped on the opportunity because mental health is massive now, to see it as a business. And I always try and stay authentic. I always try and stay true to the core. And if that means me, going into a school and they say, well, we can't afford your price, I'll say, well, I'll come and do it for free. Because my message to get across to your children is ultimately what's the most important.
Absolutely.
Now, of course, and that's what it's about.
Yeah, of course. You touched upon someone obviously asking you, well, why don't you do it for free? And I think, obviously, some people in this world are like, altruistic, where people do stuff for other people, and they do enjoy that. But sometimes getting someone like yourself to come in and, like, they say, look, I can't afford it, and you still give the same message.
Absolutely,
is second to none.
Absolutely. I mean, who am I to turn somebody down in a desperate situation where they say, they need to hear this message, but then me put a barrier up and say, well, you can't afford me, because that's ego. And that's, for me, it goes back to, yes, of course, I've got to value myself, but my purpose, go back to it, my purpose is to reach as many people as I can and change their lives. So if I was to put that barrier up through ego, of course I've got to make a living. But what's more important is me following that purpose, fulfilling that purpose. And like I say, this isn't something that I've come from intellect. Everything that I share, I've lived. If you go back onto my social media, mate, after this, you'll see everything on Instagram. I'm not guessing it's not come from a book or intellect. It's not come from a degree. It's come from my own life experiences. And the reason why I have an ability to touch people, reach people, is because I can resonate, because I've lived through it. If somebody was to take a master's degree in counselling, come out with a PhD, but they've never had anxiety before, how can you help someone with anxiety if you've never experienced it? So you've got all the knowledge and the intellect, but you haven't got the life experience. If you've got both, fantastic. So I'm more about life experiences. Of course, I've got qualifications now, but it's more about have you lived it to then share, because kids and humans, they're clever. They'll find you out. I'll go to a school and deliver an assembly, and I'm coming from like intellect, using all these big words, and I'm intelligent and sound good. But there's no connection there. I can't touch their heart because I'm not coming from their heart. Does that make sense? So
yeah, absolutely.
I love what I do. It comes at a cost, because you can imagine the amount of people when I go and help them, the amount of energy it takes, because I'm an empath as well, so I take on a lot of emotions because I feel their pain. So then I have to go and do meditation, or I have to go yoga. I have to find time for myself to reset and rejuvenate. And it is tiring. It takes a lot out of you, but I wouldn't change it. Like I say, I feel like I'm not a religious person in terms of ever gone step foot in the church, but I have a prayer life. I always say the God of my understanding. Like, it's like almost if, Sam, you get a call on your phone and it says private number or withheld. Imagine that's the universe or God or this higher power saying, Sam, take the call. Isn't that what we do on a bigger scale with opportunity? You know, we press the reject button, we press the red button because we don't know who's on the other end. Like, I've had to literally trust that call going into the unknown, because this is something through my intuition that's calling me to do this work. And if I was to say, no, I'm going to continue to play football, then that's 20,000 people's lives that I've not touched. And so for me, I just, like I said, I just love doing that work, that line of work. And I always encourage people. So my NAC coaching, I mean, I don't know if you've seen the website, but whenever I put content out, the sea turtle is never too far away. And people always say, why the sea turtle? The story behind the sea turtle, if you don't know, is that the sea turtle's born on land, born in the sand, but then makes its way directly to the ocean without any experience, without any training, without any advice. Just instinctively, the sea turtle goes straight because it knows it's created to be in the water. I always believe as human beings, we're born with a gift, whether that's writing, painting, cooking, you know, whatever it is. And I believe that it's our job to discover what that gift is. And so that's the pair of eyes that I put on when I see people, is that I can see their gift and potential. And it's getting them to tap into that and see that for themselves. And of course, like you say, at school, they teach you what to think, not how to think. So it's, you know, it is 10 subjects, pick one, and then that's your career, you know. Well, what if you don't want to do any of those?
Especially
10?
From a young
age. What if you want to go and travel the world? Yeah, so instinctively, it's about getting people to connect with who they are, to reveal what's already inside, because the answers are already there, and then go and live a life of purpose and contribution, because ultimately that's what it's about. And you know, I know so many people that have gone into a work, they fell into a job organically off of trying to please someone or not really listening to what they want to do. And then they're like, Nate, I can't quit my job. I've wasted 10 years if I quit my job. I've done it for 10 years, not knowing that they're only one decision from turning their whole life around. You know, so a lot of people stay in their comfort zone because they think, oh, I've wasted 10 years if I change now, not knowing that one decision could then set them up for the rest of their life to live the happiest life they've ever lived. So, absolutely. Yeah, the sea turtle represents that. And that's what I encourage through my messages.
Yeah, of course. What I'm taking from what you're saying as well is that you're, from my perspective as well, you are changing the perception of footballers these days, because some people may think, oh, that footballer won't talk to me type thing, or they've got a certain way of thinking about how a footballer will act. Because if you go into a school and they say, "Oh, sorry, I haven't got this," and you go, "Oh, don't worry, I'll provide that for you," there will be more people encouraged to think, well, actually, footballers are not as robotic as people think.
Yeah, exactly. And people see footballers through a window. It's like, unless you're fortunate enough to be mascot on a game on a match day, very rarely you can shake hands with a footballer. You can get a signed shirt or signed program, all of that stuff. So for me, I encourage people, because what happens is, just using a different analogy, it's like you hear people say, "What are you looking at?" For instance, you might get someone say, "What are you looking at?" It's a common thing in school, and what they're really saying is, "Oh, like, I'd rather fight you than you be able to see through me," because what it is, it's a defense mechanism. They're saying, "What are you looking at?" because really they're suffering inside. And what happens with a footballer is that they've become thick-skinned, which creates separation, because they're expecting there's this separation between fans and the normal people and footballers. And footballers have now been immune and well equipped to be thick-skinned and sort of put on this pedestal. So breaking that cycle and breaking that barrier down to actually just a level playing field where, like you say, people can see footballers and see them as inviting, rather than intimidated to speak to them. It's about breaking down those layers and barriers. And underneath, I can tell you now, because I've experienced it, footballers underneath all of that are just human. And it is a lot of the time just a persona,
Yeah, of course. From a young age, I've always gone to like Vicarage Road, where Watford is, and I've stood outside of stadiums waiting for players to come out, and I've had so many different like interactions with players, and more so doing the interview. And now I've found they're just human, but I've had interactions where I won't name the player, but he's walked out and I've gone, "Oh, it's the end of the season." I've gone, "Oh, can I have your shirt?" And he's gone, "Oh, there you go, mate." And he's pulled it away and walked on the bus. And then instantly in my head, I've gone, "Well, you're an idiot, mate."
Yeah.
But I know where with some other players, they more so doing.
And did that? Yeah. And when you had that experience, Sam, did you feel intimidated to then speak to the next footballer that came across?
Yeah, in terms of like, I've with Watford players, I didn't know them like they were my pals, but I knew them enough to be like, "Oh yeah, he's quite a nice guy. I'll approach him."
Yeah.
But in terms of like, into the unknown, you sort of go, "Oh, I don't want to talk to him because he might."
Because you don't know how they're going to respond.
Yeah, absolutely.
I did a practice. I put something out on my social media 2 weeks ago. I obviously, you have to try and stay active, so I went just on a small route on a jog where I live, and I set my intentions and said, I'm going to speak to every single person that I see. Not many, but everybody that I do, I'm going to speak to, and just say hello, good morning, and not expect anything in return. Okay, just do it from a selfless place, and just do it just to acknowledge people. And I did it, and I probably got 60% of people said hello, good morning back, and probably 40% that didn't even acknowledge me, didn't even give me no eye contact, no nothing. But my intention, remember, was not expecting anything in return. So what happens is that 40% that didn't speak to me would probably, one, have something else on their mind. They might receive some bad news, and I caught them off guard. Two, they might not be used to people speaking to them, or three, they could just be genuinely ignorant. But I can guarantee they would have gone home and felt bad about not saying hello back, because we're human.
Of course.
So even though I could have easily took it personally and been like, "Oh, they didn't speak to me, how rude." I know that next time they come into contact with someone, they might give them eye contact and anticipate them saying hello. Does that make sense?
Of course, yeah.
So that they can right that wrong. So you can always. So for me, it was like the same thing. The question with the footballer, if your mindset was like, oh, I'm not going to speak to another footballer now based off that experience, you might have missed an opportunity to then get a signed shirt off one of your favourite players. So really, it's just about. I always use nature as an example. Like I see the creepy crawlies and birds playing with each other, have that mutual respect, and then I see, like, say, a tree with fruit on it. It allows anybody to just feed from it, and the tree don't say, well, they're my apples and you've got to give me something in return. The tree just gives you an apple just from a place of giving. So I try and look at nature and try and implement that as a person and think, right, okay, can I just give? So the challenge is, Sam, is like whenever you face challenges or setbacks like that, is to still be you and still, do it, because you never know. Everyone's different and you never know what response you're going to get. So rather than letting that experience then, knock your self-esteem or anything like that. So.
Yeah, obviously, looking back at that as well, obviously him pulling it away, but you in turn saying what you've obviously just said, I look at it and think, I've looked at myself and gone, well, actually, my reaction probably wasn't great either. Me going, you have not, like, why have you not given me your shirt? As in, like I had a given right. Like you say, he might have had a situation where he's had a bad day or something's not quite gone for him, and like it was sort of a bit of a learning curve for myself. Obviously, you.
Well, it's just interesting, isn't it? I think the thing is just to remove expectation and just come from a place of just being consistent, and
that's what I've learned.
Instantly. I always use this practice with everybody that when I've gone to public speaking events and stuff like that, is I get the audience to close their eyes and think of a cup. So if I said to like you sound like close your eyes, think of a cup, CUP, we have to go close our eyes and bring up on the screen of our mind a cup. Now, every person I've done this with, and I've had hundreds of people in a room at once, not one person has got the same cup. So it could be a white cup, it could be a black cup. I got a trophy, obviously, with football. But it's interesting. And what that teaches you is that we've all got our own model of the world and we all interpret different things. You might interpret something different to me. A cup that I see is completely different to you. Do you understand? But it's the same word. So, like you say, in scenarios like that, you've got to realise that actually we all have our own model of the world. We don't see the world from your pair of eyes. Do you know what I mean? So that helps you have compassion and empathy for others, to know that we're all unique and that we're all on this same journey, but yet we all have our own worldview, and that's okay to be different. That's okay to have a different opinion. That's okay to have a different belief. Because we're all entitled to that, and like you say, it's just all learning experiences. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Obviously, have you got to shoot off now, or?
We'll probably wrap it up, mate. But you know what? I know we've moved away from football slightly towards the end, but it's been a great conversation, and it's been great to see your work. Obviously, with the Saints legends as well that you've done. So. No, I really appreciate you reaching out to me and getting on this call, and it's been a really good insight as to for you to obviously look at a life of a non-league footballer and some of the stories I've told, but also for me and my work, because like I say, I'm journaling, I'm looking to going into podcasting and stuff like that. So, I'm sure we can push this conversation forward and stay connected.
Absolutely. I'd love to get you on again.
Each other. So, yeah.
I'd love to get your book as well. But, thank you very much for coming on.
No, you're very welcome.